Hello everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Games Up podcast. My name is Cameron and it's just me this week. Sorry. Before we go any further and get into the podcast in full, I have to apologise to you a little bit. I don't know how the audio quality of this is going to be. I've been a bit of a nonce and lost my headphones. I intend to have them back again for the next episode of the podcast, and I'm going to edit this as best as I can, but if it's a little off, sorry, bear with us. It should only be 1 week. Now, usually the show works by talking about gaming news and a topic of the week and everything that's been happening in the last week of games, but we're starting to wind the year down. We're looking towards 2019 with open eyes of dreams of Cyberpunk 2077, but until then, we have a few weeks to get there, and one of those weeks includes Christmas. So it's time for our annual Christmas gift guide. What can you get a person that's into games if you don't know what to get them or are new to all of this? Now, to begin, a console is always the way to go, even if it's one of the pricier things you can get out the box. If you're looking for a new console right now, you can't go wrong with a PS4 Pro, an Xbox One X, or any form of the Nintendo Switch. Though there are rumours of a new Switch on the horizon in early 2019, so be careful buying that one unless you're already in on the hardware. I myself am, and I'm hoping to get a Switch for Christmas. Very excited for the potential of that. And if you are looking to do the same, there are a couple of bundles you should bear in mind. The Pokemon Switch is a special edition of the Nintendo Switch that comes bundled with all the stuff you will need for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu or Eevee. The Fortnite bundle, however, is the one that I imagine most parents will be looking at, and I would say this: it might be worth putting your money elsewhere. Fortnite is a free game, and though the bundle comes with a number of options and a number with extra things that will make the Fortnite experience more fun, it is a bundle that arguably is paying for the privilege of having Fortnite's name on it rather than being worth the money. Might be worth looking at if you can get as good a console, the Nintendo Switch, in a slightly different bundle and still have access to Fortnite afterwards. Also, with that, you don't need a Nintendo Switch Online membership for it. Don't get scammed into that. I've seen people in-game being told they need it. I've actually stopped somebody in-game being sold it before. You don't need an online membership. If you're just buying this console for your kids to play Fortnite with, don't buy into that. If they want anything else, you'll need it, but just that, you don't need it. So a console is a great start. But the likelihood is, if somebody's into gaming, they probably already have or are already looking towards one of these consoles. So maybe you need to get them something around the console. I would suggest in that case a custom controller. They're a really, really nice way of making a personal gift that nobody else will ever have. You can go official through the Microsoft Store, which does a controller customization option, and you will pay a little more for the privilege and be a little limited in what you can do. Though you can make some really, really lovely color schemes, and you can have their gamer tag engraved on stuff, and you will have an official warranted Microsoft controller. So there's something in that. You can go slightly more unofficial in something like Scuf Gaming or one of the many other third parties that do independent custom controllers. Now, they give you a lot more option. You can print designs on them, you can have things engraved, messages, you can have color schemes, motifs, whatever you want, probably. But you might pay a little more the more customization you want. If you're going right on the high end of messages and images and prints and designs on everything, you're probably going to pay quite a pretty price for it. It probably won't be out of this world, and also it's definitely worth it for what you get, but the Microsoft Store might be a better option for you Xbox people, and a slightly less pricey custom controller might be an option for everyone else, although you can't go wrong with personalization. If you don't know what to get somebody, as in you have no idea what they're into, you have no idea what games they like, what games they might like, whether they're going to return it to the store afterwards, you could instead give them the gift of choice. And the gift of choice this year comes in the form of a subscription to a gaming service. I would suggest Microsoft's Game Pass. It's really, really good value. I've been using it the last couple of weeks, and I am pretty blown away by how much I've got out of it so far. Although, of course, this is limited to the Xbox platform. Although there's rumours of it coming to PC in the near future, so keep your eyes on that. Probably not in time for Christmas, though. On PlayStation, you have PlayStation Now's option, which has recently added the option for downloads as well, so it's starting to compete with Xbox Game Pass in a very healthy way. In the same way, I imagine you'd get a fair amount of value out of it, and both services have a really healthy amount of games that you can pick up, and also a really healthy amount of variety as well. If you don't know what game somebody's into, this is a really great way to go about it. The Nintendo Switch is a little more limited in scope when it comes to Game Pass or Netflix-like services, although the online subscription model for Switch does have access to the NES backlog, which is kind of backwards compatibility done through the cloud and online. If somebody doesn't have the online service already, I'm sure they'd appreciate it, and this does get them access to a bunch of seriously impressive, important classic games. Also, if you're a games historian or really into the history of all this stuff, that's a great little option as well, because some of these games just aren't playable elsewhere. It's a cool little thing to do. And if you're looking for something a little more generic or across the board, you could look into actual third-party services. Here in the UK, we're a little bit limited with that, to be honest. There are a couple of services where you can rent things, but not many. Though if you're an international listener, firstly, hello, thank you very much. Secondly, I would suggest looking into something like Gamefly, although make sure to read up the availability in your area and any limitations on the service you buy. There are a couple of things and T's and C's here and there where you can only rent certain amounts or you only have to get them at certain times. It's worth looking into, but it's worth looking into carefully. But let's say you're not looking for anything big like hardware, you're not looking for a custom controller, you just want something simple. A game, for example. Well, don't you worry. It's been a good year for games, and the last few weeks have been very good for games as well. If you're looking for something that's single-player focused, something that's story-driven, you can't go wrong with something like God of War, if they have a PlayStation, Red Dead Redemption, if they have any console but a Switch or a PC, Spider-Man, again, if they have a PlayStation, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is available on all the platforms except Switch, Pokemon Let's Go, which is a remake, to be fair, but it is still a story-driven Pokemon game, which is available, of course, on the Nintendo Switch. These are all fairly recent releases, fairly well-respected releases, and they are also very, very good story-driven games. If you're looking for something more multiplayer, again, don't go buying Fortnite. If you want to buy a bundle to give your kids the pass or the new skins or this, that, the other, that's fine. But don't get caught up in anything. Fortnite Battle Royale is a free game. On the other side of multiplayer things, there's Super Smash Bros., which came out very recently, and I've played it, and I've got to say, it's pretty fantastic. Would highly recommend it. It's very accessible. It's a fighting game, but it's not like a gritty, mature fighting game. It's really nice and accessible, and kind of family-friendly in that sense. It's worth a go. Super Mario Party is a more couch co-op style version of multiplayer. If you're looking for something that you can all gather around Christmas and play together, Mario Party is a really, really good shout. If you're looking for something a bit more mature or a bit less family-friendly, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds just came out on the PS4. There are quite a few bundles available for it, although some of them are more value than others, so, be careful and do your research before buying them. I'd recommend the base model. Frankly, I don't know that the skins and customizations make a huge difference, but the game is really, really fun. If you want a more chill version of multiplayer, you could look towards a sports game perhaps. FIFA 19 is, of course, the out-every-year classic, and it's trustable in that it's classic. Everyone plays it. You can also look at Forza. Forza Horizon 4 is a really, really, really good game. A lot more chill, super nice way to do multiplayer. If you're looking for something more couch co-op and indie-ish, can I suggest Overcooked 2, or Overcooked 1 and 2 if you haven't played either of them. They are super fun, lovely couch co-op games, mildly infuriating, but mildly infuriating in the best ways. Now, perhaps you're buying a game for somebody a little older, for somebody who's a little more nostalgic at this point. Well, don't worry, there's a bunch of stuff that came out this year that would suit them as well. Character platformers are a great way to go in this case, and perhaps they have a particular fondness for a wonderful purple dragon. I know I sure as hell do. Well, the Spyro Reignited trilogy came out this year, and it is a beautiful beautifully done remake of the first 3 games that a lot of people have a beautiful nostalgia for. I would highly recommend that. But if that's not their thing, you could get them, of course, Crash and Sane Trilogy, which came out this year on Xbox One and Nintendo Switch. And if they already have it, you could pre-order, though, again, be careful with pre-orders. We've always said try not to pre-order games where you can't, but you could pre-order the Crash Team Racing game that was announced at the Game Awards just a couple of weeks ago. If that doesn't work, you could always try the Mega Man 11 game that came out recently. Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are remakes of an old Pokemon game that might suit them well as well. Those were a couple of ideas. If you're looking for something for a gamer away from the console, something you could consider is tickets to events. Something that's been happening a lot more over the past couple of years is orchestral concerts. One of the best ones I've seen is a concert of music from the Zelda games, prominently featuring Breath of the Wild soundtrack played over live imagery of the game. These are lovely, beautiful events that bring video games to life, and off the top of my head, one of the first couple ones happening in 2019 is the Assassin's Creed Symphony, where they're playing a bunch of the Assassin's Creed music over the original games. That's a lovely idea. You can find these kind of things happening all across the year, all over the country, and all over the world, so that might be a really nice way to do it. If you're in the UK and you're looking for a slightly cheaper but still wonderful ticket to something, I would recommend EGX highly. It's the UK's biggest video game show, and it is consumer based, so they won't need any kind of special pass to get in. They can play all of the biggest games before they come out. If you get them the one in April, they will play all the biggest indie games and some of the biggest AAA games. If you get the one in September or October, I think it's October this year. If you get them the one in October, that is all of the biggest indie games, all of the biggest AAA games, and all of that jazz. If you're looking to something to enhance the console, there are 2 ways I can suggest going. Firstly, a good pair of headphones. Sound is so vital, but it's often overlooked. A good pair of headphones can make a real difference to this. I personally would recommend Orange's O Edition headphones. They are what I edit this podcast on, and I love them to death. But they're a wee bit pricey, so if you're looking for something a little more acceptable or a little more approachable, you could look to Astros. They are gaming headsets, and they do high-end, mid-end, and low-end versions. Turtle Beach do the same thing. If you're looking exclusively for audio headphones, as in not really focusing on the mics or the game integrations, Sennheiser do fairly good, although sometimes a little pricey headphones. On the low end of things, Skullcandies used to be quite good. I haven't tried them recently, but they always had nice flat EQ responses, so they were quite good for things. And a bunch of them come with microphones as well, so they should still have that gaming functionality. On the other side of things, the much more pricey end of things, VR is a lot more prominent and realistic than it used to be, and with its current price and games, the PlayStation VR is a kind of can't go wrong pick. This holiday season there are a bunch of bundles that the PlayStation VR is offering, and combining some of the best games that came out this year, including the Astrobot game, which has picked up Game of the Year award nominations in quite a number of places, combining that game with a bunch of other games and a really cool immersive platform. The PlayStation VR is a really, really good shout. But if you want something that enhances the game a bit but is considerably cheaper, I would recommend a Philips Hue light. Now the reason I say this is because you can buy a single standalone light and suggest that whoever your gaming friend, lover, family member, estranged cousin, that stranger you met on the train once, you can suggest to them to put it behind their TV and light up the surroundings of their living room as they play games. This shouldn't cost you any more than a tenner, either in dollars, pounds, or a lot of other currencies, though not all of them. And I do this, and it's really lovely. I've been playing Gears of War 4 this week, so I've turned my Philips Hue light to red to match the tone and the setting of the game. And it doesn't enhance it in the same way VR does, but it is nice to sit down and feel kind of surrounded by the atmosphere of your video game. A nice, cheap way to enhance the gaming experience, but a great one nonetheless. But maybe you're looking for something a little less materialistic. If you want to do something philanthropic, is that how you say that? If you want to do something philanthropic, This year, for somebody's Christmas, why not make a donation to a gaming charity? Able Gamers is a really, really great one, and so is Special Effect. They both work to make the lives of disabled people better by making video games more accessible to them. They are both truly wonderful, wonderful causes, and you can't go wrong giving something like that. If you're looking for something a lot more personal, a little less materialistic, and a lot more time-based, then I would suggest investment in a project. The most expensive end of this is building a PC together. PC is often the best way to get high-end games, though there are a few things like exclusives you'll miss out on. Though this often requires a lot of work, a lot of research, and quite a lot of cost as well. This isn't something you should just run into. I would say do your research. But if you were looking to have a project with a friend or a partner or your children or your family, perhaps, building a PC together is a really, really nice way to do it. And you can customize it to the kind of games you want to play. If you want to play a lot of co-op games, for example, you can build it to fit with the right amount of monitors and adapters and controllers so that you can play those games together. If you want to build them something to, I don't know, take away to uni with, for example, so they can play loads of single-player lovely games in their dorm, you could maybe build in a particularly good webcam so you can talk to them over Skype. It's that little bit more personal. It's a lot more work and a lot more time, but it will be worth your time and your effort. But if you want to do something like that on the smaller end of things, might I suggest renovating? I've been watching my partner recently renovating a handheld console, and whilst I am aware that I don't have anywhere near the brains to do what she's doing, it's really cool to watch this thing that was faulty and not usable become usable and playable and see what it's transformed into. Again, don't rush into it. There are a lot of people who will sell you, frankly, scams, and there are a lot of people who are trying to get rid of hardware they don't want anymore. Make sure you've done your research. But might I suggest renovating a Nintendo DS, for example, or one of the consoles from your childhood? Why don't you renovate Game Boy Advance? I imagine they're fairly cheap to buy these days, and the games library is just as good as it was when the Game Boy Advance went out of production some years ago. I couldn't tell you however many years ago, but there's great Pokemon games and stuff on it. So, those are our ideas for gaming Christmas. Consoles, games, things to enhance the games, services, a project together, and of course you could always donate to wonderful charities like Special Effect and Able Gamer. We hope that this has helped with your Christmas buying a little bit, or maybe it's helped next year because it's kind of only a week until Christmas. God, that's terrifying. Thanks very much for listening. We will see you next week. If you like the show, feel free to come and join us on all of our social medias. We are at Games Upcast on everything. That's Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, iTunes, and Twitter. And we post this show every Monday at 6:30 p.m. and much, much earlier that day on iTunes so that you can catch it on your way to work, or in this case, not on your way to work, or some of you on your way to work because it's kind of the week before Christmas. I'm not at work. Ha ha. See you next week. The Game's Up.